Live from a studio apartment, this is Misinformation. And pause while I get my finger over the goddamn buttons. Oh, jeez. Here, hold on. Okay. Well, today is the January 6th Insurrection Day. Yeah. They're thinking of making it a national holiday because, just like Santa Claus, it isn't real. Yeah. You find out about that when you hit early adulthood. It's a fairy tale. Yeah, the Insurrection Day, it's called. Or as it's also known, the one day conservatives forgot to bring their guns. Yeah. One time it happened. The one time they stormed the Capitol, they forgot them. They forgot them at home. Everyone was bummed. Super bummed about the whole thing. Honestly, there's been more gun violence from trans activists in the last few months than there was at the Capitol on January 6th. Just my personal... I had a graphic for that. Here we go. This is a crap show. I don't know if I should have prefaced that at the beginning. I don't know if you could tell, but there's no video guy or audio. It's my finger on a button. That's fine. We'll hit it in post. Trump says he might buy Greenland. Huh? Yeah, Democrats objected to it, but only because they heard it's got a lot of ice. Yeah. They're super suspicious about the whole thing. Just trying to avoid it, if possible. Tim Walz is dropping out of the governor's race. Yeah. And this will be the third race he's failed, including the presidential race, the governor's race, and whites. Yeah. That last one was a tough one. All right, there's your jokes for tonight. And now we're going to get into some news. Here, hang on one sec. How's everyone's day been, by the way? If anyone's there. Feel free to chat. Feel free to chat if you want. It's I don't know if I can see everyone's messages. Sometimes they come in a little bit, but it's like certain sites it doesn't pull them from, I think. It's my teleprompter, by the way. Fancy. Okay, so what we got going on in the news? I mean, still, there's basically two main stories that are still happening right now. We had the whole Somali fraud fiasco, right, which like dominated the headlines for the entire last week. And then brief intermission with capturing another country's president over the weekend. And now we're back to the Somali fraud. So that's basically what happened. We'll start with Maduro stuff and Venezuela stuff, because there's still some headlines coming out of there. So this was a big one. I'll pull it up right here. This was Trump today. He dropped this tweet at like the end of the day, basically saying, well, I'll just read it to you. I'm pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to the benefit of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary blah, blah, blah. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Then he ends up with the "thank you for your attention to this matter" tagline. So, number one, he's the best at trolling people. Because you have all the, you hear the Democrats complaining about, oh, it's imperialism and you're just doing it to steal the oil. So it's just super funny that he comes out and throws it right in your face. Like matter of factly, like, oh yeah, we're going to take the oil and it's going to come right to the docks here in the United States. But if you're unaware, so the whole backstory with the Venezuelan oil stuff, I heard Marco Rubio discussing this the other day, is supposedly, they have all these oil refineries in Venezuela that they've been using over the years. And I guess some of them are American refineries, like companies that went over there that they quote unquote repatriated, I guess they call it, when they became communist. they just turned them all into government companies, right? They've been using them to get the oil. But the thing is, apparently, they're not very good at it. And they've been using the oil rigs at like 18% capacity. That's a quote from Marco Rubio. So he's saying, essentially, they haven't really been using them for the people of Venezuela or for companies. They've been using them for a small group of government officials to prop up that government in Venezuela. So that's supposedly how not Hugo Chavez, but how Maduro got his money and how the regime was kept afloat was by just like barely kind of operating these oil refineries and these oil rigs and not really distributing it back to the people at all. So part of what Trump is claiming to want to do here is to take that oil, sell it at a fair market value, because supposedly they were selling it for like 50 cents on the dollar, right? They're working out shady deals with Russia, shady deals with China, and they're just selling this stuff to basically prop up this drug kingpin, you know? So now Trump's saying, we're going to take the oil, we're going to sell it at the actual market price, and we're going to use the money to benefit the United States of America and Venezuela. He dropped this one at like 4 p.m. today or something like that. And they got some little gangster pictures of him to go with it. Just kind of funny. It is a gangster move. So, I don't know. I mean, you know, that's what you got to kind of love about Trump is he's unabashed about this sort of stuff. You know, if you accuse him of being like an oil baron, he's going to show you, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm selling it. That was my intent. So, kind of refreshing, actually. I like this America with balls, you know. That's okay with just going in and, you know, and showing their colors. Here was an interesting tweet earlier today. So I guess, who was it? What the hell is this? Delta Force. Oh, okay. Not the tweet I was thinking of, but similar story. So basically, Delta Force operators. I don't know why Nathan for you is in there. What the fuck? Okay, so it says Delta Force operators conducted rehearsals when they went to go raid Maduro's presidential palace over the weekend. I guess he's saying that they were conducting rehearsals on a full-scale replica of the presidential compound, including specific architectural features of Maduro's residence. The mock facility was in a classified location, replicated not just the physical layout, but specific construction materials and hardening measures that were supposed to provide protection. So I guess they were actually like walking through, you know, what they would need to penetrate certain walls or how bullets would move in that environment and things like that, so that they kind of knew the compound inside and out. So number one, that's rad. Number two, and it shows you how they were able to successfully apprehend him so quickly. You know, they basically turned it into muscle memory by going in there and just rehearsing it over and over and over again. The thing that it tells me too, though, which I suppose this could not be the case, but if they had a lifelike replica of the Maduro residence built, doesn't that tell you that they've been planning this for months in advance, at the very least? I mean, Trump kind of makes it sound like it was a spur-of-the-moment decision to go in and get him because he was dancing and it was aggravating them, which is probably partially the case, but they had to have been staging this and rehearsing it for months, especially if they're building a lifelike replica with the actual construction materials. So I found that an interesting piece of news to come out. Let me see if I could find this. Dang. I got a really cool video of the Delta guys training, but I don't know where it went. Let me see. Replica, Maduro. Is there footage? I'll have to find it later. Let me see if I can just search it real quick. Delta train. I hope this doesn't pop up with like flight attendants. Yep. Yeah. Not the cool military training video I was hoping for. Instead, we get whatever that is. It actually kind of looks like me right now. I should stop making fun of this guy. I need to cut my hair. This shit grew out too long. There's a very fine line where when I let it grow out too long, and especially these, I cross over from Wolverine into homeless Wolverine threshold. It's not the best look. Anyways, I'll try to find that video. That video is so cool, damn it. How do I not have this thing? Let me see. Maybe it's in here somewhere. Cool video, blackout. I don't see it. It's somewhere weird. Okay, well, whatever. This is Maduro getting off the helicopter. Which, whoa, by the way, when I first saw this, I didn't think this was real. I still kind of, I mean, it looks real. It's not community noted or anything, but I guess this is a video of Maduro arriving in NYC. And it's just super interesting. That's him and his wife there. I guess they're ducking low just in case there's... This is probably his first time in the States. Imagine being brought to justice and seeing the seen as clear of a video as that before of him arriving. All the ones of him being perp walked before were kind of grainy and crappy, so that one was cool to find. There's a guy called Gummy on Twitter, on X, whose profile pic is a little gummy bear. That's all I know about this person. He raises a good point, really good point about how quickly the U.S. was able to get in and out of Venezuela without any kind of casualties, losses. As far as I know, there were no strikes on them even. I mean, maybe some bullets or something hit the helicopters, but I haven't heard of any major damage at all, which is crazy. So he was replying to Roberto Reyes, I guess, who says he's talking about the narrative of Russian air invincibility and how that's come crashing down. And Gummy adds to this, it's crazy how the entire geopolitical landscape can be turned upside down by one single variable. But if it's the case that Russian and Chinese air defense cannot contend with U.S. air power, like in Iran or Venezuela, then it completely flips the script on everything, including Taiwan. So what he's basically saying there is, you know, I believe Venezuela was using Chinese radar, which China sold them, to monitor their airspace. Now, somehow the U.S. was able to come in, either it didn't work or they were able to shut it down completely, right? And I'm sure this is something that the U.S. Air Force thinks about and plans for, is how to shut down an enemy's radar, right? So they shut everything down, and apparently they shut it down very efficiently. And then the same thing happened in Iran with the strike on, I forget his name, but the strike that Trump did on Iran last year, right? Whoa. So yeah, this guy's talking about how Russia claims that you couldn't even, a fly couldn't even get through. And then Venezuela, the shield failed miserably. So yeah, I mean, if I haven't seen, you know, you see Russia invading Ukraine and it does not look very efficient. It looks like a protracted war where when it first started, they were getting their asses handed to them by drones, you know? And they're still battling it out. We haven't seen China in a major conflict recently. We just can go off of their radars being completely ineffective in Venezuela, right? But if the U.S., based on these last two operations, the U.S. looks like it's in a class of its own completely. I mean, the efficiency with which they went in, no losses, no damage, grabbed a sitting president and took off with him intact and largely unharmed, is insane. So, yeah, I mean, if the U.S. truly is that much more capable than the other superpowers, then China is going to have to think twice about trying to take Taiwan, right? So it's just a crazy thought. And so far, I haven't seen anything to counter the idea that Russia or China could compete with the U.S. Air Force. There is still some debate over, I guess there was, part of the controversy was there were members of the Cuban military and intelligence services that were hired to protect Maduro. And there's still some debate as to whether they fled or portions of them fled when they realized that the U.S. was there to get them, or whether they were all killed by the U.S. Certainly some of them were killed. That much we do know. Cuba saying that 32 members of its military and intelligence services were killed by U.S. forces in the Maduro raid. So they got some pictures here. Oh, I just saw the Delta video. Sweet. This is that Delta video that I was going to talk about, by the way. So there was a tweet that started today. You guys got to watch this thing. It's cool. George Galloway. I think he's the Lincoln Project guy, but I'm not 100% sure. He's an idiot in any case. And he says, no U.S. forces, however special, could slay 34 special Cuban forces. They're not Cuban cigars, okay? Cuban special forces. Without sustaining casualties. This is simply an impossibility. Either Trump is lying about U.S. casualties, that is a crazy thing to say, or the Cubans were slain in other circumstances. So this is just a bizarre conspiracy theory. But then this guy comes in and posts, impossibility. That's great. Anyway, here's what they look like in training. And this is Delta in training. Firing, ready to go. Crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be a Cuban. I mean, that's fast. Imagine someone coming around the door and just pop, pop,
Stand
and
up.
you're gone. You're done.
Stand up!
So yeah, I guess this is what they were doing. This isn't a video of them training
Mayor,
for
you
the
heard?
Maduro thing. This is just a random footage. But
Walk around him.
I guess this is the sort of stuff they were doing with a mock buildup of the presidential palace in Venezuela. So that was a cool video. There is still some discussion about the missile that was fired. There's this video online of like what people are claiming is the lone missile that Venezuela fired back. It just hit a hillside. And then they're saying here in the tweet that the position that the missile was fired from was then hit pretty severely by U.S. forces. Which I guess you can see there. So, not a good defense from Venezuela. That much we know. Okay, moving on. The other big story was the Somali, Minnesota, Tim Walz fraud, which we returned to this week apparently with some big news. Tim Walz yesterday. This was Kamala Harris's running mate in the last election. He announced yesterday that he was going to not be running. He's going to drop out of the Minnesota governor's race. And then he just left the press conference, right? So the press was like, okay. And then he promised he would answer questions today. Well, today they come in, they ask him questions. First, he starts rambling about January 6th. I don't know if this is the same.
What decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic allies?
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And certainly, I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that and, report both sides of this. Well, he
did lead an insurrection, to be fair. It was just over the weekend against Venezuela. And when he did the insurrection, he won. Just going to point that out.
He said he really didn't, and courts convicted 400 of them, and he pardoned them. No, he did that. He did that, and that's today.
Okay, so he's rambling on about that. Here's the more interesting clip of him, where he basically says he's quitting the race because he needs to be held accountable.
Full accountability for everybody, because buck stops with me. I'm accountable for this. And because of that accountability, I'm not running for office again. But I have a year to continue to improve on a record that I think will stand up against anybody's, a record that has made Minnesota better, a record that makes people guilty. I'm not running for office again. But I have a year. State, there's full accountability for everybody, because buck stops with me. I'm accountable.
Buck stops with me. I'm accountable for this. Because of that accountability, I am not running for office again. Now, I don't know what the extent of Tim Walz's involvement with all these Somali daycare scams actually is. But I will say, does a completely innocent person resign or quit their job, basically, and then when asked why, say it's because they're holding themselves accountable? It's like, accountable for what? Is there other stuff that you need to be held accountable for that you haven't told us yet? Why are you, what accountability are you referencing, sir? There was another report that dropped about him today, which is basically saying that he and others took measures to cover their tracks.
The performance audit shows the Behavioral Health Administration sent millions of dollars out the door in grants without making proper checks into who was receiving them. And that is not even the most jaw-dropping finding. Lou Raguse has tonight's top story. Lou?
Okay, and this is about an audit for these checks that were sent out. I don't know if this is for the daycare or some other thing, but they're basically not verifying whether kids are showing up to the actual daycares, whether people are blah, blah, blah. So,
Julie, according to the nonpartisan legislative auditor, this is another case of mismanagement of taxpayer money. But perhaps the most explosive revelation is that managers within DHS, the Department of Human Services, tried to cover their tracks by backdating and creating new documents.
I do want to talk about what a serious issue this is and how it is frankly unacceptable.
Another sobering report by the Office of the Legislative Auditor, this one concerning the Behavioral Health Administration within the Department of Human Services, which issues grants to providers treating mental health and drug and alcohol addiction, hundreds of millions of dollars each year. The audit found them issuing grants to applicants without a bidding process.
So what we saw is that there was multiple entities that could have been eligible, and they chose not to provide a justification for why they were picking those.
This report is quite stunning.
One outrageous example, the auditors found a grantee that was paid $672,000 for 1 month of work without any info on what they do. And the audit says the grant manager who paid it then left DHS a couple days later and became a paid consultant for that company.
To me,
nothing to see there. That all sounds totally normal. Did Democrats just find like an infinite money glitch? And they're just all aware of it? Is that what's happening here? There was an interesting theory also on Twitter about Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. Basically saying that, and I don't know if that's true or not, but basically saying, at the time that she selected him as a running mate, she was like, her campaign was starved for cash and they needed fundraising. And then all of a sudden they find Tim Walz. Out of nowhere, he gets the nod as the vice president candidate, and her funding problem disappears. That's what somebody was saying on X. I don't know how valid that is, but I mean, if this is actually a widespread scam that just Democrats are very aware of, maybe they did tap into it.
That's criminal.
Auditor Judy Randall says she was most shocked that during the audit, multiple DHS managers backdated or created new documents to try to cover their tracks.
Frankly, in the 27 plus years I've been with OLA, I have never seen this before. I will say we have had suspicions periodically, but we have never been able to prove it, to document it, and we did in this case.
Yeah, the Somali fraud thing is kind of out of hand. Just the whole thing. I feel like it would be helpful. Hold on, let me get rid of this crap. I'm setting something up. I feel like it would be helpful to have like some type of I don't know, like a song that could help us understand the whole fiasco. Somalis cross the sea, come to America, well, they're for free. We've got all these businesses, but don't look in there, 'cause there's nothing to see. Yo ho, yo ho, a pirate's life for me. Enjoy our food, a pile of dirt. Don't dare be rude or the hostage gets hurt. We once Riley raised autism, so send our regards to the king of the retards. Yo ho, yo ho, a pirate's life for Timmy. Ilhan Omar had no money till now, 30 million so far, but nobody knows how. There's no other sin she invested, you see. She brought her brother in incestuously. Yo ho, yo ho, a pirate's life for you and me. I just saw the moon barfing. I caught a glimpse of that. It made me laugh. Makes me laugh almost every time I see the moon barf in that video. I've had that song stuck in my head for the last week, by the way. I wrote it. It's all just stuck in my head. It's a banger. Underrated banger. All right. What else we got going on with the fraud stuff? Here's Cernovich on Twitter. Oh, let me pull him up again. Let's go here. Well, here's Matt Walsh. I haven't watched the Matt Walsh thing. He's talking about, I think, how white people may have aided and abetted Somalis in some of the fraud. Cernovich jumps in and says, this is why Tim Walz is nervous. No way did the Somalis fill out their own corporate and grant government benefits paperwork, open bank accounts, run the cash flow and payments. There's an entire network of white-collar frauds behind this. Kind of what the lead joke about Tim Walz was about in the opener here. Yeah, I mean, I do agree that there probably is a higher organization of largely white people. You saw the leader of the Feeding Our Future ring was actually some white lady, I forget her name, over in Minnesota, who kind of ran the whole operation. So I don't doubt that there are people in higher corporate or government positions who assisted with this. I think we're at the tip of the iceberg for the whole thing. So I'm interested to see how it shakes out. You got Tim Walz resigning, or basically stepping down. People are calling for him to resign now. I haven't heard anything from Ilhan Omar in like weeks. She disappeared. She disappeared faster than a Somali child in a daycare. She was gone. Can't find her. I also haven't looked too much into the Newsom sort of fraud allegation stuff. It is being mentioned, though, today, because Trump's bringing attention to it. He says he's launching an investigation. California, under Governor Gavin Newsom, is more corrupt than that. Newsom, by the way, is very sticky. I like as a nickname. That sounded way wrong how I said that. Oh, that did not come out the right way. That's what she said. Yeah, it's very like I now when I see Newsom's name, I think of Newsom every time. He says he's more corrupt than Minnesota, if that's possible. The fraud investigation of California has begun. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So we'll see what comes out of that. There's so much in California. I mean, it'd be insane to even begin to look at the fraud in California. They have so many social programs out here that they do not audit. What was the recent one? Oh, I forget. It's a ton, though. You got Trump. Trump has a stand-up comedian's vibe to him a lot of the time. I was just thinking today, he reminds me a little bit of like a Rodney Dangerfield. Do you guys see that? Not exactly, but he has that same sort of like old-timey kind of humor to him. Here's him doing some stand-up outside of the plane the other night. Oh, no.
Chuck, a friend of mine called me up. He said, what the hell is going on? A very rich guy, but I said, the fat drug doesn't work on you. Why are you even taking it? The drug has failed miserably, but he's a very loud, boisterous. He's not a bad guy, not a
Talking about Ozempic.
great guy, smart as hell. But he's a very rich guy. This drug, he could have paid millions for it. It wouldn't have mattered. But he said, in London, Chuck, a friend of mine called me up. He said,
Killing it. He's got he had another bit on the Democrat protesters and how they look.
by the way, Venezuela, everyone, they're marching in the streets. They love it, except in New York. I mean, where they find these people? These people, they're not like, these people are a mess. I know it's not nice to say that. These people are a mess. Where do they find these people? They're the worst looking people I've ever seen. They got hats that are all frayed and all, they look like, they're all paid. They don't even know what they're talking. When the reporters don't interview them because they know that it's, the press is so anti. It's hard to believe the press could be so anti. Because it's all common sense. It's not, we're conservative, whatever.
It's just funny. I mean, he does these like stand-up routines in the middle of everything. Natural talent. Big news. I mean, obviously, it's a big story. I haven't heard like a crazy amount of stuff about it. It's January 6th, obviously, which is, I feel like even the Democrats are starting to concede that it wasn't an insurrection now. And they held that up for a long time. Credit to Scott Adams. He came up with, I think he mentioned in his live stream a few days ago, like the framing for the January 6th hoax, which was essentially, he has this kind of running idea that, the Democrats or thieves in general, when they try to gaslight you, it's like they try to do the opposite of what they're doing, right? They accuse you of doing the thing that they're doing, right? So his whole thing on his live stream a few days ago was that the Democrats were rigging the election in 2020, i.e. they were carrying out an insurrection to overthrow the government. And so what do they do in that situation? They accuse the other side of an insurrection. That's his framing. And that actually came up on the White House website today with an official announcement. It says the White House's new January 6th website features Scott Adams' exact language and framing. And then we have the verbiage here. The Democrats masterfully reversed reality after January 6th, branding peaceful patriotic protesters, I don't know that they were completely peaceful, but peaceful patriotic protesters as insurrectionists, and framing the event as a violent coup attempt orchestrated by Trump, despite no evidence of armed rebellion or intent to overthrow the government, which I didn't see either. I call it the insurrection because people were snapping Instagram photos of them stealing podiums and shit. There were some rowdiness, there was some violence, but nothing the most violent thing that happened was Ashley Babbitt getting shot. In truth, it was the Democrats who staged the real insurrection by certifying a fraud-ridden election, ignoring widespread irregularities, and weaponizing federal agencies to hunt down dissenters, all while Pelosi's own security lapses invited the chaos they later exploited to seize and consolidate power. This gaslighting narrative allowed them to persecute innocent Americans, silence opposition, and distract from their own role in undermining democracy. Which is pretty good. Pretty solid reframe. Here's Scott the other day.
The real insurrection was Democrats trying to remove Trump, but they did such a good job of, creating this fake January 6th Select Committee and hunting down all the people, that they took a thing that they reversed it, essentially. They reversed reality, because at the time they had the power to do that. They were the insurrectionists. And the best way they could cover up for the fact that they were the insurrectionists is by accusing the other side of being the insurrectionists. And that's what they did. Almost successfully.
Really good. We got to get Scott on the Mistinfo live stream while he's still around. But a brilliant reframe. Certainly. And it's something I believed for a long time. I mean, it looked completely staged to me. Not the people in the Capitol, but the way that they were led into the Capitol, that there weren't sufficient Capitol Police there, that some of the Capitol Police were opening it, right? It never seemed like it was an actual violent insurrection of the government. Because, just to be honest, if conservatives had wanted to, I don't think they could have overthrown the government, but they could have overtaken the Capitol and held it. They could have done it very violently had they wanted to. And, I mean, they certainly have enough guns at home to do it. And so had they wanted to do that, they could have gone a lot further than what actually happened. If that was their best attempt at overthrowing the government, I just don't buy that. So that was also one of the lead jokes about them showing up without guns for one day in their lives. Shocking. They picked the one day they went to overthrow the government to show up and just bare knuckle it. Crazy. Okay, just a little bit left. Looks like this was the other big kind of crazy news from today. Trump saying he's going to buy Greenland.
Need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be?
A little bit of stand-up in there.
For a claim to Greenland? What would the justification?
Oh, I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it. And they know that.
Interesting. So this is really heating up now that I think people thought this was a joke at first, but now you see what happened in Venezuela. People are saying that we've returned to a sort of pseudo-imperialist policy. And now this talk is heating up about acquiring one way or another Greenland. So a couple things to point out here. Bill O'Reilly had a good little talking point where he's basically explaining Donald Trump is... he says he's serious about Greenland because I guess he met with Donald Trump and he was talking about it a bunch. He says President Trump wants military bases in Greenland, U.S. Air Force and Navy. He wants to use it to blunt the Arctic expeditions of Putin and China, which are actively underway. He just has an interesting insight on what's going on here. So he says his negotiating ploy is to create chaos in Copenhagen, which he is doing, and CNN is helping him do that. So all of this is what he does. He creates chaos, and then he gets his deal. We need the United States military bases in Greenland, and Bill O'Reilly says, I suspect we will get them. So what he's saying is, Trump's saying he's going to invade Greenland, he's saying he's going to buy it, blah, blah, blah. That's maybe not his end goal, but Bill O'Reilly believes that part of him creating the chaos of that is to eventually work out a deal where he gets the military bases on there. And then the final thing to point out was an interesting breakdown of why the U.S. is so interested in Greenland. Why are we so interested in this block of ice in the ocean? This guy Object Zero has a good tweet about it. First off, you can see the location right here, right in between our northern hemisphere and the Russian Federation on the other side. He says Greenland is viewed from a proper map. Why Greenland? Well, because Moscow bases almost all of their strategic military assets on the peninsula next to Finland. This is where Russian ICBM silos, submarine bases, and their strategic bombers are. If you look at the flight path, ballistic or powered, from Kola, that's the base, to anywhere on the lower 48, then everything goes over Greenland. So all these ballistic missiles, all these flights would travel over Greenland to get here. Greenland is the theater where any strategic exchange between Washington and Moscow is contested. If you want to intercept a ballistic missile, the best point to do so is at the apogee, at the top of the flight path. The shortest route for an interceptor to get to an apogee is from directly below the apogee. That's where Greenland is. So he's making a case that all of these missiles would go right over Greenland. They would crest right over Greenland. And so having a base where you could hit these missiles from beneath it is strategically really important if you're foreseeing some type of a conflict between Russia and the United States. So without stating what should happen here, this is why the Trump administration says they need Greenland for national security. The other thing that's happening is that the northern passage through the Arctic is opening up. And soon there will be Chinese cargo ships sailing through the Arctic to Rotterdam. It's faster than the Suez, and the ships aren't limited to Suez max size, so China and the EU trade is going to accelerate a lot. This means Chinese submarines will also be venturing under the Arctic into the northern Atlantic if they aren't already doing so. Hence, the northeast coast of Greenland serves not one but two critical strategic security objectives of U.S. national security. If this wasn't clear to you, please understand that the Mercator Global Map Projector is for children and journalists. It's not useful for seeing how things actually work. And then he has this actual picture of like how you can see, there's Canada right here. Here's the Russian Federation, and everything kind of goes right over Greenland. Okay? I think that's Greenland. Cool. I think that's most of the stuff for tonight. So we'll probably wrap it up there. Might check in with the TikTok for a sec, see how those guys are doing. I don't believe it's streamed there at all, but maybe I streamed there for a little bit. We'd have to see. So if you guys like catching me here, I will be back tomorrow night and Thursday and probably Friday as well. I'm still playing with the times. I kind of will announce them a little bit on my Instagram page in advance, but I'll probably try to come up with a set time. Right now I'm trying to do it a little bit earlier, so like 6 p.m. or so, 6:30, 7, somewhere around there for the live stream. If you miss it, you can always just replay it. It'll be back up on the YouTube for the evening, so you can replay it then or the next day. All right, thanks for joining, everybody. Have a good